How nice must it be to be able to put someone you love in your head and see them?
Today we're going to be talking about aphantasia or aphantasia, which is often described as having a blind mind's eye, or an ability to create pictures in your own mind. I'm going to be talking to my very good friend Dianna Moylan, who is a aphantasia sufferer, or how would you describe it? Would you describe yourself as a sufferer?
No, I'm not a sufferer of anything.
No, I didn't think so. Aphantasiac, maybe.
Yeah. I describe myself as being, but I don't say I say aphantasic. Yes.
Aphantasic.
And it's nice to have a word to call me.
So you don't see any pictures in your mind's eye. You don't have a mind's eye. How is it for you?
When I was younger and people talked about things in their mind's eye, I found that very interesting and rather puzzling, but I just thought that they were saying it because they experienced things like I experienced them. But later on I discovered that actually they did have a mind's eye and I don't.
When you first realised that other people had this ability, how was it for you, and how did you come to that realisation, and how old were you?
I read the book The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat.
Yeah, Oliver Sachs.
Yeah. And as I was reading through that, I could see things which said things about me that no one had ever said before. And I was maybe in my 50s. I'd always felt like I didn't necessarily fit.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure why. And when I began to understand that I didn't fit because I didn't perceive things like other people did, then it made it a bit easier. When I came to the realisation, I was studying a course called Art and Environment, an Open University course, and it was talking about physical art, art painting, art sculpture, art poetry. And as I began to do that, I began to realise that there were things I couldn't do. I've written poetry all my life. Mm-hmm. I began to look at my own poetry and realise there are no visual images in my poetry. Mm-hmm. There are none. But then what I didn't know was that I can't be anything but that, because I can only be what I am, and what I am is someone without visual image.
So for those of you who don't know whether you are or you aren't, one of the ways that they would test for this is they would say, okay, well, close your eyes. So just humour me here, Diana. Imagine a beautiful field in spring in the meadows. The sun is shining, there's a horse in the field. And now, can you tell me what colour is the horse and how many legs of the horse you can see?
It's a lovely, lovely test. I did this at the time. It's meaningless to me. What colour would you like the horse to be? Then I'll imagine it that colour. How many legs can I see? Well, I don't know. And the test, when I did it, they also asked me, what season is it? What season do you want it to be? Because I have no control. I have no picture. So I can only see what you want me to see, and then I don't see it, I think it. So my imagination is different from other imaginations, I think, too. I mean, this is the test I do with people when they say, well, I don't believe you. And I ask them to do it. And many of them can see 4 legs of the horse, it's facing them, it's summer, the leaves are all out, and all of that's just beautiful, and I'm so envious because I can't do it.
Well, for me, I mean, you did that test on me, and I am not 0 on the scale. I have a mind's eye, but it's every little detail. As soon as I look too hard, it disappears.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it's quite frustrating. If you think of a scale on 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, I would be like a 2, 3, maybe a 4. But I can still have that ability to manipulate. I just can't see it very well. It's like it's just out of reach. There are some people who apparently have 10. They can see things.
I've always been fascinated
detail.
What it must be like to be able to do that. When you talk to people and they say, have you got that? Do you understand that? They say, I see. And I realised over the years that I don't use that. I don't say I see. I say I get it, or I perceive it, but to say I see it is just telling lies. We do what we do to protect ourselves in a way, or to enable ourselves to fit in with others, because others like us to fit, you know.
Yeah, well, I've noticed, So this is kind of a good point to talk about neurodiversity, because some people think that neurodiversity is just sort of like a politically correct synonym for autism, because we don't want to use the A word or something like that. But actually, it's just about the fact that human beings have a huge variety of different brain experiences. I would consider myself neurodivergent because, well, I'm diagnosed autistic, but I also have many ADHD traits. I have other neurodivergent traits, and you don't consider yourself autistic. You've not been diagnosed, but I think of you as someone who is sort of the classic neurodivergent because your brain works in very different ways.
Well, I actually think each of us has a brain that's fundamentally different from other people.
Yeah.
But I found myself incapable as a young person of falling into agreement with the group. Mm-hmm. So the word autism wasn't known when I was a child. When people really wanted me to be part of their agreement group, I found myself incapable of doing so. And people often thought, well, I was just doing that just for effect. Mm. I wasn't. I was doing it because I feel very uncomfortable saying that I agree with something if I don't.
Yeah.
And over the years, I believe that this is unethical to force people to accept something that they can't possibly perceive is wrong. So I've not been able to perceive as others. And some people like to talk down to me and say, well, how can you possibly learn to drive a car? What's that got to do with images in your brain? I'm a careful, safe driver. Mm-hmm. Or you must be able. They can't accept. You must be able to make pictures. No, I've tried really hard. I've got a very good brain. I've got a degree in bits. I taught. And because of my understanding of a different way of learning things, I was able to teach on several levels. Mm-hmm. So those of them who could see it, I would set off. Those of them who couldn't, we'd do it with a sound.
How do you deal with things like directions? So if somebody's giving you directions saying, go left at the church or whatever, like, can you follow that?
Yeah.
But if somebody said it to you, can you create a map in your head? Is that how it works for you?
I use the app Waze, and you can use Waze in two ways. You can either have it up on your screen and look at the picture, mm-hmm. or it can talk to you from down there away out of the way.
Yeah.
What I do is to use Waze talking to me.
Okay.
So it says, you're in 1,000 metres, you're going to turn left. And that's how I got here today. I live in Milton Keynes, a very difficult city to remember anything in because we have a lot of roundabouts.
Yeah.
I just do it. I don't know the name of the road. I don't even have an actual feeling that I put it to memory. I just can do it. Mm-hmm. So people say, how do you drive? Well, carefully.
Yeah, good.
Responding to other people's need for the road. I don't know how other people learn. Yeah. So I don't know if what I learn is different from that. I just know that if I'm going to the city centre from where I live, I go out, I turn right, left, right, and the city centre will be there. Mm. It's not a picture, it's a thing.
Just out of curiosity, I know you can't see an arrow. If you were to try hard to visualise an arrow, would you be able to say which way it was pointing? Would it have a direction?
Only if you told me what direction you wanted it to point in.
Okay.
I mean, I can now make myself have a left pointing arrow, but that's only words. It's not pictures.
So you have words, left pointing arrow.
Yeah, I have a brain full of words.
Yeah.
And I was a spontaneous reader at 3. And that also points to neurodiversity, I know it does.
Yeah.
And about a third of the people who read like that are also autistic.
Yeah.
But I keep failing the autistic test, so I can't be autistic.
It's not a test you fail, it's a test you win. So, do you dream? And if so, does it look like anything? I think I know the answer to this, but I'm just asking you.
I understand that everybody dreams.
Yeah.
And that when you analyse sleep patterns, people are going through the rapid eye movement thing, which and so everybody dreams. Do I have pictures when I dream? No. It's of no importance to me what things look like around me. Of no importance at all.
Do you, I don't need to ask that you would not be able to tell me to create somebody's face in your mind, but do you have that problem recognising faces as well?
Yes.
So, but do you know that you know the person and you just don't know who they are, or do you just lack that completely, the ability to do that?
Over the last 10 years, I've developed a new way of doing things. When I meet someone, I say, I'm really pleased that we've spent this time together. If you see me in the city centre, don't think that I'm a snotty cow because I didn't say hello.
Yeah.
Because I won't have recognised you. If you recognise me,
Yeah.
you won't have to say who you are, because the moment you point out that I should recognise you, I will recognise you, especially when I hear your voice, because that's another backup situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so people are now beginning to understand that I'm not doing this on purpose. So in a way, it's a disability.
Yeah.
That other people don't experience. I have to manage. Obviously, I have to manage, and I manage. I live on my own, and I run a pretty normal life.
Yeah.
But yeah, people are no longer thinking, well, why?
Yeah.
Because I can't see them, and to be honest, I don't look to recognise people. I don't look. Do I have a disability?
Well, I was just about to ask you that. Do you consider how disabled do you consider yourself by this? Because obviously, being able to remember things like that about people is a significant advantage, isn't it?
But is it a significant advantage, or does it just make them feel better? You know, because this is a lot about making them feel better, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does it make them feel better that I recognise them? Does it make them feel bad that I don't? Does it make the slightest bit of difference to my concern for the world and for poverty and for changing and the climate? No.
Yeah.
That's nothing to do with visual imagery.
But you could also make the same argument for any sort of aspect of the so-called deficits of autism. Does it matter that I can't make eye contact or I don't like to make eye contact with most people? It doesn't matter in the slightest. No. It's completely inconsequential. Matter. It makes them feel like I'm paying attention. Yeah. But you know what? If they were talking about interesting stuff, then I'm paying attention.
Very early in the knowledge about autism, which came when I was in my 20s, I think, people would say the way that you dealt with your children was to hold their faces and make them look at you in the face.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine anything more cruel.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing to do. More and more, as I talk to you about autism and as I look at the tests and I look at the comparisons, I get on with people extremely well. I like people.
Yeah.
I'm a bit frightened of them, but I like them. Am I autistic? Probably. Am I going to admit to it? No. Does it matter? No, because I live alone and I'm old and I've managed all my life to work around this thing.
Yeah.
But how nice must it be to be able to put someone you love in your head and see them? Wonderful. It must be incredible. And I haven't got it. Haven't got one.
So despite the fact that you are not a visual person, you don't do that, as you say, you're extremely musical.
Yeah.
You've got the musical thing. So you presumably have a mind's ear, so you know what that is like to experience sensing things that aren't really there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if somebody phoned me, if friends phone me, they know that it's not necessary to say who they are, because I'll know.
Yeah.
Because I recognise. But I don't think this is it's not a backup system. It's not a substitute.
Yeah.
It's a thing. I'm a musician. I love being musical. I couldn't live without it. But I have sight. I see.
Yeah.
But the significant thing to me is the hearing thing. But I don't think it's there because of the thing. It's just there.
Yeah.
And there must be people, perhaps, who can do both, and how wonderful that would be. I met somebody once who said she was literally tone deaf, and I said, nobody's tone deaf. She said, yes, when music plays, it's just a thing. But I don't hear the ups and downs of it that you tell me are happening.
It sounds like noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just fascinated.
So the last thing I want to talk about is something that actually we both have, which is one of the things that neither of us knew that we had, which is synesthesia, which is somewhat different from the topic, but also related because it relates to how you process your senses and sensory input. Did you always know that was part of how you experienced the world?
No, that came along with the man who mistaked his wife. And of course my synesthesia is very different from other people's synesthesia because they can see the colour that they perceive in a different way. But I perceive, for example, the colour that a field of rape is, it's that shape. It's not colour in there, it's that shape. But none of them are about anything that's in there in terms of visual. It's really difficult to talk about synesthesia, but it's been very important to me, the sense that a colour has a feel. And that is definitely that golden orange feel, is like that. and I feel an absolute twit doing that. When I was told that the blues, the jazz music, the blues, was because when you were sad you felt blue, I said, that's wrong. When I'm sad I feel red. But I don't feel red in there, I just feel red. It's a weird thing.
This is probably going to be one of the stranger conversations that we have today. But thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to, well, everybody on the internet about it.
You're very welcome.
It's one of those things that people don't really understand. A lot of people, I think, have it but don't know that it's a thing. And much like I was autistic for 33 years of my life, and then all of a sudden, oh, it's a thing. I don't need to feel bad about it anymore. I don't need to constantly try and do this because it's just the way I am.
Yeah, it's such a relief to feel that it's okay. I know I'm okay.
Yeah.
But it's good to feel that I'm okay. And it's okay not to have pictures. It's not the end of the world not to have pictures.
I hope you enjoyed hearing about Dianna's experience with aphantasia, however you want to say it. Don't forget to leave this video a like if you enjoyed it, and comment down below if you are an aphantasiac, if you are a sufferer of aphantasia, if you don't suffer. Just let me know your experiences down below, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.